Billahi ta'ala. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. والله تعالى متكلم بها, and Allah, exalted is He, is a speaker by it, yani by His speech. آمر ناهي مخبر, a commander, a forbidder, a teller or an informer. Yani by it, by that speech. SharH, the explanation, is أن الكلام صفة واحدة, that the speech of God is one attribute, أزلية أبدية, eternal, everlasting. Allah Ta'ala mutakallimun biha. Allah, exalted is He, is a speaker by it. Amirun wa nahiyun wa mukhbir, an informer, a commander, a forbidder, and an informer. فَكُلُّ هَذَا مِنَ الْكَلَامِ الْأَزَلِي. All of this refers back to the eternal speech, to one eternal speech. لَيْسَ صِفَاتٍ مُتَعَدِّدَةٍ. These are not numerous attributes. These are not numerous attributes. So, in the Qur'an and in the Sunnah, you will come across different words. They all refer to the attribute of speech. It's not different attributes. When Allah says, إِنَّمَا أَمْرُنَا لِشَيْءٍ إِذَا أَرَدْنَاهُ أَن نَّقُولَ لَهُ, etc. till the end of the ayah. Our command of something, if we willed for it, is that we say to it. So that word command there, or amr, amruna, that refers to His speech. Or sometimes you say, bi'idhnillah, by God's permission. So this permission here, that refers to His speech. Or when Allah says, ud'uni astajib lakum, call me, I will answer you. So this answering, this istijaba, that refers to His speech. All of this is one attribute. Laysa sifati muta'addida. These are not numerous attributes. His commanding, His forbidding, His telling, His permission, etc. Bal sifatun wahida. Rather, it's one attribute. تكون خبرا ونهيا وأمرا واستخبارا ووعدا ووعيدا. It will be a telling, a prohibition, a command, a question, a promise, a threat. وقال بعض الماتريدية, and some Maturidi said, كل أنواع الكلام يعود إلى الإخبار والذكر. Excuse me. And some Maturidi said, now if I translate the statement, it would say, all types of speech refer back to informing and mentioning. So, what he means is, whatever perspective of looking at the speech you want refers back to one thing, which is telling and mentioning. Yes. Like when Allah says, وَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ, mention me, I will mention you. أَذْكُرْكُمْ, so that means Allah has dhikr, speech, yani mentioning. Allah has a mentioning, which is His speech. Allah says, وَلَا يُنَبِّئُكَ مِثْلُ خَبِيرٍ. No one can inform you like someone who's all-knowing. Informing refers to speech. So didn't the Shaykh teach us in the summary of obligatory knowledge that one should have started with way before he's taking this book? The Shaykh said those 13 attributes are mentioned in the Qur'an and in the Sunnah repeatedly, explicitly and implicitly. So after learning, you would find that the kalam of Allah is mentioned in the Qur'an a lot with many different words. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, وَالْقُرْآنُ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ. And the Qur'an is God's speech. Exalted is He, uncreated. The Qur'an is God's speech, uncreated. So that means here, we're not talking about the book. We're not talking about a text or document when we say it's uncreated, although we're using the word Al-Qur'an. Because a text would be for sure created. A document would be for sure created. SharH, the explanation, أن القرآن بمعنى الصفة الأزلية غير مخلوق, is that the Qur'an with the meaning of the eternal attribute, not with the meaning of a text document, with the meaning of the eternal attribute, which is the speech of God, is uncreated. لاستحالة قيام المخلوق بذات القديم تبارك وتعالى, because of the impossibility of something created existing as an attribute of the eternal self, glorified and exalted. واستحالة كون الحروف المؤلفة المركبة قديمة, and because of the impossibility of composed, constructed letters being beginningless. كما ذهب إليه مجسمة الحنابلة, which was the position taken by the anthropomorphist Hanbalis, which for us, we say they are Hanbalis, those anthropomorphists, the bodifiers of God. It doesn't mean that they truly represent the Hanbali school, but that they were misguided people who attached themselves to the Hanbali school, who affiliated with the Hanbali school, and they learned the Hanbali fiqh. وقد مر ذكر أن الله تعالى متكلم من غير أن يكون كلامه أصواتا وحروفا. And it has already been mentioned that Allah, exalted is He, is a speaker without His speech being letters and sounds, or sounds and letters. فمن أراد أن يفهمهم ما معنى القديم إذا قيل عن الله أو عن القرآن أو عن صفة من صفات الله تعالى يقول لهم. So anyone who wants to make those people understand what being eternal means, what being uncreated means, what being beginningless means, when it is said about Allah, or said about the Quran, or said about any of the attributes of God, exalted is He says to them, Al-Qadim ma laysa li wujudihi ibtida'. The eternal, the beginningless, the uncreated is that which does not have for its existence a beginning. Wallahu ta'ala laysa li wujudihi ibtida'. And Allah, exalted is He, does not have for His existence a beginning. كَذَلِكَ عِلْمُهُ, and likewise His knowledge. وَكَلَامُهُ الذَّاتِي, and His self-speech. لَيْسَ لَهُ ابْتِدَاء. These attributes have no beginning. Self-speech means the speech of His self. وَالْقُرْآنُ بِهَذَا الْمَعْنَى, and the Qur'an with this meaning, not the meaning of a text document. بمعنى الكلام الذاتي, meaning with the meaning of self-speech, God's speech of His self. فهو قديم. It is uncreated. لا ابتداء لوجوده. It has no beginning for its existence. أما اللفظ المنزل أما اللفظ المنزل على سيدنا محمد. But concerning the expression revealed to Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, فهذا لوجوده ابتداء. This, for its existence, has a beginning. This text, this document. لأنه مخلوق لله, because it is a creation of God. وجبريل الذي نزل به مخلوق. And Gabriel, the one who brought it down, is created. وَالنَّبِيُّ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ عَلَيْهِ مَخْلُوقٌ. And the prophet upon whom it was revealed is created. وَهُمْ يُشَاهِدُونَ حِسًّا أَنَّ الرَّجُلَ كَانَ فِي بَدْءِ أَمْرِهِ سَاكِتًا. And they witness physically that a man would be in the beginning of his affair silent. ثم يقول, and then he would say, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يأتي بالباء. He would first say the letter ba. ثم تنقضي. Then it would finish. ثم بالسين. And then he would say the sin. ثم تنقضي. And then it would finish. ثم بالميم. And then he would bring the meme. فتنقضي. And then it would finish. وهكذا, etc. إلى آخر القرآن. Until he finishes the entire Qur'an. يعني until he gets to من الجنة والناس. كيف يقولون عن هذا اللفظ غير مخلوق. How could they say about this wording that it's uncreated? كما يقول هؤلاء الصوتيون, like what those sotis say, the sotiyah, the people who believe in God's voice. God doesn't have a voice. Voice is created, attribute. Footnote here. I'll just translate directly. Ibn Taymiyyah went with the Karramiyah, but he doesn't say, I took from the Karramiyah, because the Karramiyah are known to be a heretical group, misguided. And so he doesn't want to affiliate himself with them. Rather, he attributes this to the Imams of Hadith, the Imams of the people of the prophetic way. Yani he would say his blasphemy, and then he would say, and this is the position of the people of Hadith. And this is the position of the people of the Sunnah. So when somebody doesn't have strong knowledge, and when a person doesn't have good sense of personal safety in his religion, then it's easy for him to take from anyone who says, the scholars said. That statement, quote unquote, the scholars said, you only take that from someone reliable. And anyone who's not reliable, then make him be exact. Or else he's going to pass that off on you like Ibn Taymiyyah. And he's going to accept it from someone like Ibn Taymiyyah. The Shaykh says, so anything in which Ibn Taymiyyah agrees with the Karramiyah or the Mu'tazila, he would attribute it to the Imams of Ahlus Sunnah. He would say, this is the position of the people of Hadith. Yani, Ibn Taymiyyah's case was that he was a deviant who affiliated himself with Ahlus Sunnah. It's not really the norm of the deviant people to affiliate themselves with Ahlus Sunnah. Meaning, the Shiites, they don't say, we are Ahlus Sunnah. They don't say that. And The Mu'tazila, they don't say that. And the Khawarij, they don't say that. And the Karramiyya, they don't say that. All these deviant groups, they don't say, we are Ahlus Sunnah. Even they would call Ahlus Sunnah Ahlus Sunnah. But some deviant people, they affiliate themselves with Ahlus Sunnah as a lie, as a forgery. And Ibn Taymiyyah is one of them, and the Wahhabis are amongst them. And the ignorant sheikhs of our day are amongst them. The ignorant sheikhs of our day who commit kufr, they are amongst them. The sheikh says, because Ibn Taymiyyah, he looks too highly of himself to affiliate himself with the Karramiyya or with the philosophers. He could not find it in himself to be straightforward here and say where his source is. So he would say, this is from the people of Hadith. This is from the people of the Sunnah. Ibn Taymiyyah wants for it to be said about him, he is a spokesman for the Salaf. And he is a spokesman for the people of Hadith out of insincerity. Like Al-Dhahabi described him in his letter, Bayanu Zaghali al-Ilmi wa-Talab. Al-Dhahabi described Ibn Taymiyyah as arrogant and full of himself. Mu'jabun bi nafsih. He's impressed with himself. And that he had high ambition to be the head of the sheikhs. That's what Al-Dhahabi said. But back to the text here. So the sheikh says, let me just back up here. How would they say about this wording that starts Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and it ends Minal Jinnati wan Nas? How can they say about it that it's not created? Like, yeah, and that's what the Sotiyun say, or the Sotiyah, the people who believe that God has a voice. When they say the Qur'an is not created, that's what they mean. كما يقول هؤلاء الصوتيون القرآن غير مخلوق ومن قال مخلوق ولو كان قصده اللفظ أي أن اللفظ خلقه الله فهو كافر عندهم. And for those people who believe that God has a voice, if someone were to say the Quran is created, even if he means the wording, the document, the text, if he says it's created and he means the document, the pages, the ink, they would say he's a blasphemer. He would be a kafir according to them. Na'udhu billahi min fasadil fahm. We seek refuge with Allah from corrupt comprehension, which is lack of comprehension, miscomprehension. فَإِنَّهُ مِنْ أَعْظَمِ الْمَصَائِبِ. For indeed, it is amongst the greatest of calamities to have lack of comprehension. Subhanallah wa bihamdih. Yani, it's very, very big calamity to have lack of comprehension. What do you do to avoid this calamity? Recognize your own limits. When something is unclear for you, As soon as it's unclear for you, stop there. Then you won't have misunderstanding because you didn't indulge in what's unclear. Yani, if something is unclear for you, you could think about it and try to unravel it and make it clear. You could study and memorize and review and repeat so that it becomes clear. You can do that. And also, one of the things you should do is when something is not clear for you, throw it away. Especially if it's a case that's you're afraid it's an issue of blasphemy. Don't be dwelling on a case that you're afraid it's a case of blasphemy, but it's unclear. Just the fact that it's unclear for you right there, stop and throw it away. Push it to the side, at least. If you don't throw it away completely, push it to the side. Then if you do that, you won't be swept up by miscomprehension, misunderstanding. You will stay understanding. And what you don't understand, you know you don't understand it, and you don't delve into it. So then you didn't take a misunderstanding. وما ينقل عن الأئمة من أن القرآن كلام الله غير مخلوق. And what is logged about the Imams, that the Qur'an is the speech of God, uncreated. فالمراد به الصفة القديمة الأزلية. What's meant by that statement is the eternal, beginningless attribute. ليس اللفظ المنزل, not the revealed wording. المتألف من الحروف, not the document that is composed of letters. لأن هذا لا يصح إطلاق القديم عليه, because something like this could not be validly called uncreated or beginningless. فهو أي اللفظ في اعتقاد المؤمنين مخلوق لله تعالى. This, meaning the wording, yani the text, the document, in the conviction of the believers, it is a creation of Allah, exalted is He. ولكن يمتنع إطلاق قول القرآن مخلوق. But it is forbidden to say the statement, the Qur'an is created. It is forbidden to say the statement, quote unquote, the Qur'an is created. Al-Qur'anu makhluq, period. Saying that, that's haram. That doesn't deny the fact that the text document is created. But that sentence is haram. ولو قصد ذلك المعنى أي اللفظ, even if a person intends the document, if someone intends the document, the wording, which is 100% created with no doubt about it, it's still not permissible to say the sentence, the Qur'an is created. So that's a forbidden sentence. So some statements are haram without being kufr. يقول التفتزاني عن كون النسفي عقب القرآن بكلام الله. At-Taftazani, one of the explainers of An-Nasafiyyah, he said about Imam An-Nasafiyyah, following up the word Al-Qur'an with the word Kalamullah, speech of God. He said, لما ذكر المشايخ من أنه يقال القرآن كلام الله تعالى غير مخلوق. Because the sheikhs, meaning the scholars, have mentioned that it is said that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah Ta'ala, uncreated. وَلَا يُقَال, and it is not said, Al-Qur'anu ghayru makhluq. It is not said, the Qur'an is not created. So far, we just now took that there are two forbidden statements. You can't say, it's not permissible to say, Al-Qur'anu makhluq, the Qur'an is created, even if you mean the wording. And it's not permissible to say, Al-Qur'anu ghayru makhluq, the Qur'an is not created, even if you mean the attribute. So what do you say? You say, Al-Qur'anu kalamullahi ghayru makhluq. The Qur'an is the speech of God, uncreated. So this is what the Shaykh means when he says, At-Taftazani mentioned about An-Nasafiyyah following up the word Qur'an with the word kalamullah. So the permissible statement is to say, the Qur'an, Al-Qur'anu kalamullahi ghayru makhluq. The Qur'an is the speech of God, uncreated. That's permissible. So that part is the speech of God. That part needs to be there. So don't say, the Qur'an is created, period. And don't say, the Qur'an is not created, period. Rather say, the Qur'an is the speech of God. And then you have to say, and it's not created, because he said it's the speech of God. So At-Taftazani says, because the Shaykhs have mentioned that it is said the Qur'an is God's speech uncreated. وَلَا يُقَالُ الْقُرْآنُ غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ, and it's not said the Qur'an is uncreated. لِأَلَّا يَسْبِقَ إِلَى الْفَهْمِ أَنَّ الْمُؤَلَّفَ مِنَ الْأَصْوَاتِ وَالْحُرُوفِ قَدِيمٌ, so that it doesn't rush to someone's understanding. So that it doesn't give someone a misunderstanding that what is composed of sounds and letters is beginningless. If someone were to say the Qur'an is not created, could rush to someone's mind, that's going to be when he's not strong in the creed and hasn't learned well, or his mind is sick. It might rush to someone's mind if you said the Qur'an is not created, that you're talking about the revealed book. كما ذهبت إليه الحنابلة. At-Taftazani says, like the position taken by the Hanbalis, جهلا أو عنادا, whether ignorantly or obstinately, whether they took that position out of ignorance or they had comprehension, but they were obstinate. They were bigots for their own way of belief. So they disregarded their minds. So they were obstinate. And what did he call them? He called them Hanbalis. He's talking about the anthropomorphists. That's what At-Taftazani said. But we don't call them Hanbalis. Just like we don't call Wahhabi Salafis. It's the same thing. المعنى أن الناس إذا سمعوا هذا اللفظ القرآن غير مخلوق. The meaning is that if the people were to hear this wording, which is the Qur'an is uncreated, يتوهمون أن هذا اللفظ أزلي, they would be deluded to think that this wording is eternal. The phrasing, وَاللَّفْظُ لَيْسَ أَزَلِيًّا, but the phrasing, the revealed phrasing, is not eternal. وَمَعْنَى ذَلِكَ أَنَّهُ إِذَا سِيقَ اللَّفْظُ عَلَى هَذَا النَّحْوِ. And the meaning of this, the point that he's making is, when the phrase is put this way, Al-Qur'anu kalamullahi ghayru makhluq. The Qur'an is the speech of God uncreated. with that word speech of God squeezed in there. يؤمن من أن يتوهم أن المراد إثبات الأزلية لللفظ. Then there would be safety from the delusion that what's meant is confirming eternality for some phrases, for some wording. ثم نبه التفتزاني بأن قول النسفي غير مخلوق يقوم مقام القول بأنه غير حادث. And then At-Taftazani drew attention to the fact that when Imam An-Nasafiyyah said uncreated, that takes the place of saying it's not something that happened. أي أن العبارتين بمعنى واحد, meaning that these two expressions, uncreated and not something that happened, have the same meaning. Yani, when we say uncreated and not something that happened, we mean existing though. Existing but uncreated. Existing without being something that happened. That means the same thing. And At-Taftazani said, وَقَالَ إِنَّهُ اخْتَارَ هَذِهِ الْعِبَارَةَ غَيْرَ مَخْلُوقٍ لِمُوَافَقَةِ حَدِيثِ النَّبِيِّ. At-Taftazani said, An-Nasafi chose this wording, uncreated, instead of not something that happened, to be in compliance with the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-Qur'anu kallamullahi ta'ala ghayru makhluq. The Qur'an is the speech of Allah, the exalted, uncreated. وَمَنْ قَالَ إِنَّهُ مَخْلُوقٌ فَهُوَ كَافِرٌ بِاللَّهِ الْعَظِيمِ. And anyone who says that it is created, then he is a disbeliever in God the Great. قُلْتُ, but the Shaykh says, I say, لَكِنَّ هَذَا الْحَدِيثَ لَا يَصِحُّ مَرْفُوعًا. However, this hadith is not authentic from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Taftazani thought that there's a hadith from the Prophet like this. The Shaykh is saying there's not a hadith authentic from the Prophet like this. إنما هو كلام بعض الأئمة. Shaykh says this is merely the talk of some of the Imams. كأبي حنيفة رضي الله عنه وغيره من السلف. Like Abu Hanifa, may Allah accept him, and others from the Salaf. وأما المعتزلة, and as for the Mu'tazila, فلا يعتقدون أن لله كلاما ذاتيا أزليا غير حرف ولا صوت. As for the Mu'tazila, so that's different party now. We were talking about the anthropomorphists. The Mu'tazila are not anthropomorphists, but they do still have deviance in this topic. So now the Shaykh is shifting to them, shifting the attention to them. Remember, Mu'tazila have atheistic angle. Anthropomorphists have polytheistic angle, paganistic angle. Mu'tazila have atheistic and philosophical angle. وأما المعتزلة فلا يعتقدون أن لله كلاما ذاتيا أزليا غير حرف ولا صوت. As for the Mu'tazila, they do not believe that God has an eternal self-speech that's not a letter nor a sound. كما أنهم لا يعتقدون أن لله سائر الصفات. Just as they don't believe that Allah has any attributes. من قدرة ومشيئة وعلم وسمع وبصر, whether power or will or knowledge or hearing or sight. ويزعمون أن هذا يلزم منه تعدد ذوات قدماء. And they claim, as we already mentioned in previous lessons, that this talk necessitates multiplicity of eternal selves. وَهَذَا مِنْهُمْ جَهْلٌ كَبِيرٌ. And this from them is big ignorance. قَالَ أَهْلُ الْحَقِّ. The people of the truth said, Allah Ta'ala lahu sifat. God, exalted is He, has attributes. علم وقدرة وإرادة وسمع وبصر وكلام وحياة. Knowledge, power, will, hearing, sight, speech, and life. بمعنى أن هذه الصفات ثابتة له. Meaning that these attributes are confirmed for him. ليست غيره. They are not something else. ولا عينه. And they are not his very self. يعني they are not him, nor are they something else. فمن أين يلزم تعدد ذوات قدماء. So how would this dictate multiple eternal selves? إنما الذات الواحد متصف بصفات أزلية أبدية. Merely the one self, the single self, is attributed with eternal everlasting attributes. بأزلية الذات. They are eternal by the eternality of the self of God. وهذا ليس فيه ما يدعون. And this doesn't have what they claim من القول بتعدد الآلهة. What they claim that this is a statement of, this is a declaration of multiple gods. They're basically saying, to say God has attributes is to confirm multiple gods. That's blasphemy. والمحظور هو إثبات ذوات قدماء أزليين. What's forbidden is to confirm eternal selves, not eternal attributes for a single self, for a single eternal self. ثم إن المعتزلة تقول الله متكلم بمعنى أنه متكلم بكلام يخلقه في غيره. Furthermore, the Mu'tazila say that Allah is a speaker. So they say Allahu mutakallim. Yani, they are disingenuous people. They say He is a speaker. They don't believe it, but they'll say it. And their explanation for it is that what they mean is that He's a speaker by a speech that He creates in something else. كالشجرة, like a tree. وَنَحْوِهَا, or something else. Yani, they're saying Allah would create speech in a tree. He would make a tree speak. And then they would say, therefore, Yani, this is the speech of God. This speech that comes out of the tree, that's God's speech. They're saying, this is what we mean when we say God is a speaker. لا بمعنى أن له صفة أزلية قائمة بذاته. They say He's a speaker, but not with the meaning that He has an eternal attribute that is existent by His being. وَنَحْنُ أَهْلَ السُنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ نَقُولُ. And we, meaning the people of the prophetic way, and the majority of the nation of Muhammad, نَقُولُ الْقُرْآنُ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ. We say the Qur'an is God's speech. بِمَعْنَى الْكَلَامِ الذَّاتِي, meaning the self-speech. وَنَقُولُ الْقُرْآنُ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ بمعنى اللفظ المنزل. وَنَقُولُ الْقُرْآنُ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ بمعنى اللفظ المنزل. And we say, the Qur'an is the speech of Allah with the meaning of the revealed wording. So we say, the Qur'an is the speech of Allah, and we mean sometimes the attribute of God. And we say the Qur'an is the speech of Allah, and we mean sometimes the revealed wording. So then, what's that permissible statement that I mentioned for you a few minutes ago? Permissible statement is Al-Qur'anu kalamullahi ghayru makhluq. The Qur'an is God's speech uncreated. That's permitted statement. What's forbidden? To say Al-Qur'anu makhluq. The Qur'an is created. And what else is forbidden? Al-Qur'anu ghayru makhluq. The Qur'an is not created. But also what's permissible? To say Al-Qur'anu kalamullah. Period. To say the Qur'an is the speech of Allah. Period. That's permissible. So you can say Al-Qur'anu kalamullah. The Qur'an is the speech of Allah. When you say that, sometimes you mean the revealed words, and sometimes you mean the uncreated attribute. If you say Al-Qur'anu kalamullahi ghayru makhluq, the Qur'an is God's speech uncreated, then you only mean God's attribute. And you can't say Al-Qur'anu makhluq, the Qur'an is created. And you can't say Al-Qur'anu ghayru makhluq, the Qur'an is not created. So I think all that's clear. If you have a question about it, please ask. وَلَا مَحْظُورَ فِي ذَلِكَ. There's nothing forbidden about saying that, about saying the Qur'an is the speech of Allah. There's nothing forbidden about that. إِنَّمَا السَّامِعُ يُنَبَّهُ عَلَى الْمُرَادِ. Merely the one who's hearing you say it needs to be, his attention needs to be drawn to what's intended. فَيُقَالُ لَهُ. So it would be said to him, إِنْ أَرَدْنَا الْكَلَامَ الذَّاتِي فَذَاكَ الْأَمْرُ. If we mean the self-speech, then so be it. لِأَنَّهُ كَلَامُهُ حَقِيقَةً. Because that is his speech truly. فَهُوَ أَزَلِيٌّ كَمَا أَنَّ الذَّاتَ أَزَلِيٌّ. So it's eternal, just as the self is eternal. وَإِنْ أَرَدْنَا اللَّفْظَ الْمُنَزَّلِ. And if we mean the revealed words, فَقَوْلُنَا إِنَّهُ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ نَقْصِدُ بِهِ أَنَّهُ عِبَارَةٌ عَنِ الْكَلَامِ الذَّاتِ. Then for us to say it is God's speech, what we intend by it is that it is an expression of, or it refers to, the self-speech. لا أنه عينه. Not that it is the very speech of God. وكلا الإطلاقين حقيقة شرعية. And saying it either way is literal religious talk. Literal religious talk. Not figure of speech. When Muslims say the Qur'an is the speech of Allah, Shaykh is saying this sentence is fine. And if you mean by it the attribute of God, then that's literal in the religion, not a figure of speech in the religion. And if you mean by it the revealed words, then that's also literal in the religion. It's not a figure of speech in the religion. And if you were to ask, is it possible for something to have two different literal meanings? The answer is yes. It's not necessary that a word or a phrase or an expression only has one literal meaning and all the other meanings it has are figurative. For example, the word nikah in Arabic, does it literally mean the marriage contract? And figuratively it means sexual intercourse? Or does it literally mean sexual intercourse and figuratively it means the marriage contract? Or does it literally mean both of them, the marriage contract and sexual intercourse? Some scholars said nikah, this word has two literal meanings, and other things too, they said like that. فَالْمُعْتَزِلَةُ الَّذِينَ يَعْتَقِدُونَ أَنَّهُ لَا كَلَامَ لِلَّهِ إِلَّا مَا يَخْلُقُهُ فِي غَيْرِهِ. And so the Mu'tazila, those who believe that God has no speech but what he creates in something else. هم المرادون بقول بعض الأئمة. They are the ones meant by what some imams said. من قال القرآن مخلوق فهو كافر. Anyone who says the Quran is created is a kafir. That's a statement said by some imams. Whoever said the Quran is created is a kafir. We didn't start that way. We just said it's haram. You can't say the Quran is created. The statement is haram. It's not kufr. So someone might say, wait, how you say it's not kufr? Imam Fulan said, Man qala al-Qur'anu makhluqun fahuwa kafir. Whoever says the Quran is created is a kafir. What's the answer? The answer is what Shaykh says here. وَلَيْسَ مُرَادُهُمْ مَنْ قَالَ بِالتَّفْصِيلِ. They don't mean someone who has details in mind. He's saying the statement that's forbidden while he has details in mind. Those who said that's kufr, they don't mean that. That's why you don't learn by just reading books. And that's why even if you have a shaykh, you need one who's accurate. Some people have teachers and their teachers need some polishing. فإن التفصيل هو مذهب أهل السنة من السلف والخلف. Indeed, holding the position that there's details is the position taken by the people of the prophetic way from the Salaf and the Khalaf. The Salaf being the predecessors and the Khalaf being the latter day generations. قال الإمام أبو حنيفة في إحدى رسائله الخمس. Imam Abu Hanifa said in one of his 5 treatises, التي ألفها في العقيدة, those treatises that he authored in the field of the creed. Because Abu Hanifa, out of the 4 Imams, was the most blatant, the most straightforward in authoring about the creed. Yani, the scholars said he is the most explicit in the matters of the creed among the 4 Imams. Not to say the others weren't explicit. What they mean is Abu Hanifa had a focus on the Aqidah and authoring for it that the other 3 didn't have. Because like you know, Abu Hanifa had his own madhab in Aqidah altogether that was adopted by the Maturidis and developed by the Maturidis. What did Abu Hanifa say? وَيَتَكَلَّمْ يَعْنِ اللَّهِ لَا كَكَلَامِنَا. And he speaks not like we speak. And notice Abu Hanifa didn't say وَلَا يَتَكَلَّمُ كَكَلَامِنَا. He did not say, he does not speak like our speech. He said, وَيَتَكَلَّمُ لَا كَكَلَامِنَا. He speaks unlike our speech. There's 2 different things, even though they're close. وَنَحْنُ نَتَكَلَّمُ بِالْآلَاتِ وَالْحُرُوفِ. We speak with instruments and letters. وَاللَّهُ تَعَالَى يَتَكَلَّمُ بِلَا آلَةٍ وَلَا حُرُوفٍ. And Allah, exalted is He, speaks without an instrument and without letters. وَالْحُرُوفُ مَخْلُوقَةٌ. And letters are created. وَكَلَامُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ. And the speech of God, exalted is He, is not created. Intaha, end quote. Let's stop here. Do you have any question I can answer for you?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
When you tell somebody, one says the hand is not created. what does that? Somebody say the Quran is not created. It would come to think that the speech of Allah is not created. Is it a difference?
Can you repeat, please?
When one says the Quran is not created, that person may be thinking that the speech of Allah is not created. What is the difference between the other one, the other saying you were saying?
So if someone says the Quran is not created, and the person first, let me make sure I understand your question. Are you asking me if someone says the Quran is not created? Huh?
I didn't hear that last part. You went out.
Sorry. So is this your question? If someone says the Quran is not created, and the one who's hearing him understands that this means the attribute.
Yes.
Then the one who's hearing him is safe, and the one who said that statement, he fell into a sin.
Then the one who the actor asks the one who's saying this, what do you mean about that? What do you mean? And he said that, well, I'm talking about Allah's speech. It's not created. So
yes.
Okay.
He's safe as far as not committing blasphemy, but the sentence is haram.
What I'm trying to get at right now is how I'm trying to break it down so I can understand that how would I be explain to somebody in a much more clearer that I could say, because that statement alone to me, well, because I'm how can I say it? That statement alone, if I tell a child this, you telling the child Allah's attribute is not created.
Yes.
You're telling this child, excuse me, you're telling this child that Allah's attribute is not created. And the child says, yes, okay, I understand it. And you tell them that the speech of Allah is not created. Yes, the child understand that. Then the child understand that the Quran is the speech of Allah, and that child understand that. So the speech of Allah is not created, but he's saying that the Quran, is it the word Quran, getting that person confused, that child confused? And you tell him that the statement that the speech of Allah, not the speech, the Quran is not created. Wouldn't that confuse the child? How can I break it down even more? Is it any other way to break it down?
Yeah, you have to make the child understand the word Quran has two meanings in religion.
Mm-hmm.
So one meaning is the attribute, and the other meaning is the revealed words.
Yeah. Okay.
So if someone were to say the Quran is not created, that's not permissible, because he might make someone understand that the book is not created, because the word has two meanings.
So I was saying to that child that the Quran that we're talking about, the compilation of the Quran, it's different from when the speech of Allah.
Yeah, and that's why. So you want to say, I advise that you would say to that child, like what we're saying here, like what did Imam An-Nasafiyyah say? Imam An-Nasafiyyah said, and this is what At-Taftazani commented on. An-Nasafiyyah said, the Quran is the speech of Allah and it's not created. This sentence is permissible. The Quran is the speech of Allah and it's not created. Not just the Quran is not created.
So you have to put it in, like he said, the Quran, the speech of Allah, the Quran is the speech of Allah, and that is not created.
Yes.
That's what I can explain it better like that. All right, better.
Yes, the scholar said this is the sentence that's safe. But to say the Quran is created might make someone think that the attribute is created, so it's haram. And to say the Quran is not created might make someone think that the book is not created, so that's haram.
I got it. Now I can explain it a little different. Who said that again? The statement you said?
This is Imam At-Taftazani. At-Taftazani.
Can you spell it for me, please?
Yes. At-Taftazani. He's one of the explainers of An-Nasafiyyah.
Is that a part of the Salaf or the?
No, he's not from the Salaf. He existed a few hundred years ago. He's not from the Salaf though.
Oh, a few hundred years ago. So he's way past Ibn Taymiyyah.
I don't know if he's earlier or later than Ibn Taymiyyah.
I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me see something. One was at Taftazani. Born. When was at Taftazani born? I'm Googling. Says March 1st, 1322. 1322. Okay. That's what they say. Let's see. When was Ibn Taymiyyah? January 22nd, 1263. So Ibn Taymiyyah is earlier. What's 1322 minus 1263? 1322 minus 1263. Who's quick in math there?
The 60 years? No, 13. Yeah, 50 years.
50 years approximately?
Approximately. 1322. 60. Close to it.
Yeah, so they weren't too far apart. According to Google there. I don't. Yeah, it's probably not far.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك